We talk water quality issues with Town Manager Mark Ells on this edition of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, September 14th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mantle.
Mark, a number of things to talk about today. We're going to do a thing about water. So we'll start with 3 bays. You mentioned in your newsletter last week that you had a meeting with Lindsay Council and other folks from the 3 bays preservation. Of course, they're dealing with a pretty significant rust tide out there, kind of wanting to move the conversation forward in terms of comprehensive wastewater management. So talk to me a little bit about what's going on with 3 bays and where you see us going in the future.
Sure. Good question. I received a lot of communications too from the public in and around the 3 bays area, and wondering what's going on with, what's occurring with this algae, this rust-colored algae that's happening out in those bays, and what we're doing as a community to address it. So I think appropriately 3 bays Mike Egan, its leadership, and Mark Curley and Don Schwinn and Lindsay Council and myself sat down and we met and we spoke about where we are today, what's occurring in 3 bays, how we're going forward with various efforts. A lot of what we're hearing these days is aquaculture. And kind of a side note to that meeting, I think our Department of Natural Resources staff, I met with them yesterday, and they're doing an excellent job in putting together a more robust aquaculture program. We already have one. They know our resources best. They're working with the commercial shell fishermen. Initially, there was a proposal to go out with an RFP, but they've actually come back with another idea to accomplish a similar thing, which would really divide up grant areas to grow more shellfish, more oysters. In really, it's West Bay, North Bay area of 3 bays. They're going to start, they've got meetings with Conservation, Shellfish Committee, waterways coming up, because there's all sorts of dimensions to this. This just isn't about, well, we have salt water and we have oysters and we want to grow them. It's a much more complex process, and understanding the resources we have, which our staff is excellent at, managing it once it goes into place from our perspective, making sure that what's being done out there considers all of the different factors, not just working with the commercial shell fishermen to grow more product, but also to understand that we don't want to interchange bays, or certainly sides, north to south, because there are diseases and there are other environmental issues that are serious that need to be considered and should never be transferred. So there's a lot going on, but I was just very impressed with what our staff is doing and is proposing, and I expect that by next spring we'll have more more activity by our commercial shell fishermen out there in those areas, and then we'll broaden our program as appropriate to other water bodies in town. So, but to come back, so that was one of the initial questions of 3 bays that I've been working with them for about a year and a half on. In general, a lot of their residents are calling them saying, what are we doing about nutrients to our embayments? Why are we seeing this rust-colored algae occur? Well, yes, there are nutrients going into the bays, and yes, we know they exceed the critical load in that bay, so we can have algae blooms. This particular situation is a result of an algae that I don't think is naturally occurring here, but somehow has come here,
right.
Whether it's come in through the flushing of the bays from the ocean, or whether it's come in through some other source. So it's not completely new, it's just more prevalent than we've seen in the past. But that's a combination of nutrients, water temperature, and other factors, the amount of rain we've had, etc. So it's here. It's something that we'll have to watch. Certainly, if we can minimize that from occurring again, we would want to do it. But on the other hand, it's nature, and there's not things we can always do to control this. Big picture, now that this 208 study is done, which was really looking at traditional and non-traditional approaches to dealing with this nutrient loading issue and showing that each of our communities is doing it, and then collectively on Cape Cod we are doing it, that's done. I don't know that the entire process is done, but the specific piece is done. So now we need to get back into completing our comprehensive water management plan, system by system. There's a lot of discussion, and I spoke with you at a previous meeting about this watershed approach.
Right.
And I think that that's something that if we're going to look at our watersheds, we should look at them comprehensively. We should bring the communities that are involved in a watershed together to discuss, okay, how are we going to address this loading that's occurring, and what are we going to do respectively so that we can, over this 20-year period of a permit, we can have this resolved. And so Three Bays was asking about that. They were asking where we stand with our comprehensive water management plan, which is a broader plan for our whole community as to how we're going to manage our wastewater, our water supply, our embayments, our ponds, just our water resource in our community. So we are re-engaging in that now that this 208 work is done. And I would expect that over the next 12 months we'll be having discussions on this watershed permit and these intermunicipal agreements that will need to occur to coincide with those, as well as moving forward with our comprehensive water management plan, which will look at everything from what we've been doing with aquaculture and fertilizer regulations and some of the innovative technologies that are out there to address this issue to wastewater treatment.
Excellent. We'll look forward to keeping tabs on that. Really quickly wanted to talk as well, there's a CIP on this week's Town Council agenda for more funding for filtration units for the Mary Dunn well field. So what's going on with this?
Okay, another water quality issue, certainly. And so what's going on is within our, and this is one of the things that's important for our public to understand, that we have multiple water suppliers in town, and there's been a lot of confusion on, is this the entire town or is this just a specific portion of our town? And it's the latter. It's the Hyannis system, and specifically within the Hyannis system, it is the Mary Dunn well fields. There's 4 Mary Dunn wells, 3 of them, and then the 3 Mar wells, which are all on the east side of town. There's PFAS in those wells, and there are varying sources from that PFAS, and we've put carbon filtration system on 3 of the Mary Dunn wells, but we still have 3 Mar wells that have been minimized, but we need that water. So what we did was we put in place an intermunicipal agreement with Yarmouth and with COMM. One's more permanent. The Yarmouth one's more permanent than the COMM, which is temporary, but we are trying to move to a permanent connection with them. So in the event we need to purchase water so that we can blend it with our system so that we don't exceed these advisory standards, we can. So all of this is going on. When we first began this a year ago, when the initial 2 Mary Dunn well fields were identified as having PFAS, this was looked at, in a sense, as an interim sort of solution. It still is, but we did not know that we would have 6 wells that showed PFAS, not just the original 2.
Right.
So as we've progressed through this, we've had to purchase water in substantially greater amounts than was known 6 months ago. And certainly we're going to have to purchase water from Yarmouth for the rest of this year. You'll see us later in the year coming in with requests for operating budget increases because of the water we're having to purchase primarily, but there are other costs in operation. We're going to be coming in with a capital appropriation so that we can get filtration systems on the Mar wells.
We'll be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 8 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will have our community profile. We will also chat with CCRTA Administrator Tom Kerr. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.